Turns out that AMD have released new system requirements for Starfield. Many of you will likely find this a little bit strange, seeing as we already have system requirements and we got those a little while ago and they are available on Steam. Nonetheless, this comes off the back of AMD's exclusive partnership with Bethesda and Starfield. So yeah, this is a marketing deal, or it seems that way. Nonetheless, let's see what they are claiming. So you can see right here on AMD's website, build your own experience. They've got three different tiers here. We've got Legendary 4K, Epic Experience at 1440p, and the Heroic Experience at 1080p. Now, AMD are not giving any numbers here. They're not telling you what graphical settings you need, so we don't know whether this is for low settings, medium settings, or max settings, or even ultra settings, and we don't know what type of frame rate numbers we're going to get from this. But either way, they say for 1080p, you're going to need an AMD Ryzen 5 7600 and a Radeon RX 7600. And for some reason, they're also listing a motherboard on here as well. However, if we go over onto Steam, we can see that for them, the minimum spec, which I would assume would run at 1080p, you need a Ryzen 5 2600X and an Radeon RX 5700. These are very different requirements to what AMD is stating. That's 2 generations difference on the graphics card and 3 generations difference on the CPU. Yeah, AMD are trying to get you to spend quite a bit more money here, it would seem. Meanwhile, if you want the 1440 settings, and it seems to be they're talking about max visual settings here, I would assume that means choosing the maximum graphical settings, but who really knows? They also say high FPS, but we don't really know what that means. You need a 7700X and an RX 6800 graphics card. Meanwhile, over on Steam, we got the recommended specs, which I don't know what resolution they would run at, but we've got a Ryzen 5 3600X and a Radeon RX 6800 XT. So again, the specs are a little different here, although not quite as bad. More or less the same graphics card, an RX 6800, but again, 2 generations newer on the CPU. Now we don't have any settings over on Steam for the max settings for running at 4K. I would assume that recommended will generally get you at 1440p, probably not at 4K. But for here, AMD are saying a Ryzen 7 7800X 3D, because of course they do, and an RX 7900 XT. How realistic much of this is, we don't yet know, but you know, I just wanted to put this out there because it is brand new information. Now, off the back of this deal, this is the AMD partnership. You can get a free copy of Starfield if you purchase one of AMD's brand new 7000 series CPUs. The version of Starfield you get will depend upon the version of the CPU you purchase. Either way, if you're planning on buying a brand new CPU in the 7000 series range, you may as well go and do that now if you've been holding off, because you will get that free copy of Starfield. That offer is available between the 11th of July and the 30th of September. Now, there is a little bit more information about this AMD partnership. Todd Howard, in a video very recently, a video with AMD, said that Bethesda have allowed AMD to work directly on Starfield's code, and AMD have been optimizing that code to work with their graphics cards. Now, this has caused a little bit of controversy and a little bit of confusion for owners of NVIDIA cards. It possibly means that Starfield will not be supporting DLSS. DLSS 3 is great technology. I really like it myself. A lot of people have found it gives fantastic performance boosts. DLSS 2 is also really good, but whether or not Starfield actually supports this remains an open question. It seems at this point to be quite unlikely, doesn't it, considering the nature of an exclusive partnership with AMD. But nonetheless, not all hope is lost. A modder by the name of Pure Dark a few weeks ago has confirmed that they will integrate DLSS 3 support and maybe DLSS 2 support at a later date into Starfield. So regardless of what Bethesda decide to do here, it seems that the modding community do have NVIDIA graphics card holders back, and that the modding community will be delivering support for DLSS 3 at the very least. So at least there is that. Still a little bit disappointing though, because I think I'd like to see Bethesda do what CD Projekt Red have done with Cyberpunk and basically introduce support for all possible features and all possible graphics cards. Now, moving away from the subject of Starfield, but still in the subject of Microsoft, it turns out that Microsoft have won their case against the FTC in the US, and this is in regards to the Activision Blizzard purchase. America, the US, were trying to block the purchase. The Federal Trade Commission were not too happy about it. They felt it was anti-competitive, but the judge presiding over the case has felt that it's not anti-competitive. They say that after the deal goes through, it's likely to be much better for competition. And I say this for a number of reasons. They've said they believe Microsoft when they say that Microsoft are going to commit to releasing Call of Duty and other games on the PlayStation platform as well as the Switch platform for the next 10 years. Also, Microsoft have signed deals, Microsoft and Activision have signed deals with other cloud-based platforms that will bring Activision content for the first time to those cloud-based platforms. And all of this, basically, the judge feels will make for a better market if the deal goes through. They did say that the situation is obviously not good for Sony themselves. It's probably not ideal for Sony, but it will be better for Sony players, for Sony console owners. So yeah, there's that. So ultimately that clears the field for Microsoft in the EU and the US, both of which now have given the go-ahead for the purchase. However, there's still a block in the UK. However, it seems that not all is lost there. The CMA in the UK, which has currently blocked the deal, has put litigation on hold. That means that they're not going to proceed with any cases against Microsoft, at least not yet, and instead they're going to try and come to some sort of agreement with Microsoft and Activision. Microsoft and Activision have said that they're going to try and address the concerns that the CMA has, and largely these concerns were about anti-competitive practices and that it would cause trouble for the market, such as cloud-based problems, as well as problems for Sony as well and other consoles. At the FTC don't seem to feel that is going to be an issue, so hopefully Microsoft will be able to come to some sort of deal there. Well, I say hopefully, it depends on how you feel about this particular deal. Let me know in the comment section below. Do you think this deal should go through? Do you think it's good for the industry, or do you think it's bad for the industry? Microsoft getting a bit too big perhaps? So that brings us to the end of this video. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time.